जिस चेतना से ब्रह्म
Brahman
बना है,
is made up of consciousness, having these three
सत,
attributes
चित
of Sat,
और
knowingness,
आनंद।
Chit,
इन
aliveness, and
तीन
Anand, bliss.
एट्रीब्यूट्स वाली उसी
And
चेतना
each
से
and every
एक
soul
एक एक
is
एक
also
जीव
made
बने।
up of the same consciousness. If
ब्रह्म
the
को अगर
Brahman is
चेतना का
called the
सागर
ocean
कहें,
of consciousness,
तो
then
उसी
in the
सागर
same
में
ocean there are
उसी
all
पानी
these
से
waves
बनी
made up
हुई
of the same
ये
water,
सब लहरें हैं,
which we
जिनको हम
call
जीव
souls.
कहते हैं।
Individual
Individual
consciousness
चेतना
is called the
जीवात्मा,
Jivatma or the soul, and the collective
चेतना
consciousness is
परमात्मा।
called Paramatma, God or universal consciousness.
जीवात्मा के
If we look at the dynamics of the individual soul,
को समझा
these
जाए,
souls have emerged out of the four elements: earth,
तो
water,
पृथ्वी,
air
जल,
or
वायु
fire.
या अग्नि,
After
इन
changing
चारों
different
तत्वों में से
bodies
छूटे हुए ये जीव
and going
अलग-अलग
through
शरीर
millions of
बदलते
lifetimes,
बदलते
they are sitting
अपनी
here
लाखों
today
जन्मों
in
की
front of
यात्रा
each other.
करते करते आज यहाँ बैठे हैं एक दूसरे के सामने। और ये शरीर
And even
छूटने
after
के बाद
dropping
भी
this body,
वो अनंत
the
यात्रा
endless
चालू
journey will continue.
रहेगी। हर जीव
The
का
individual life
लाइफ
of every soul is of two
दो आयामों
dimensions:
वाला है, देश और काल,
space and time. Time is passing from moment to moment to moment, and events keep happening in the space dimension.
स्पेस डायमेंशन में घटनाएं घटती जाती हैं।
This ceaseless flow gives every soul the experience of life in two divisions every moment.
दो विभागों वाला जीवन प्रदान करता है।
The outer world is made up of people, things and situations, while the inner world is of mind, intellect, memory and ego. There are three functions of the mind, 5 functions of the intellect, the 4 levels of memory, and different flavors of the ego. Such is the ceaseless flow in which the individual life of every soul is unfolding in its inner world. Although it is definitely influenced by the outer world, if there is beauty inside, life is beautiful. If there are frustrations within, then in spite of all the prosperities in the outer world, life is problematic. Such is the game of life. From the perspective of this life of millions of births, what is meant by evolution of a soul? Evolution is the process of refinement and maturing of individual Sat, knowingness, Chit, aliveness and Anand, bliss. It is the process where these become more steadily established and beautiful. If a soul used to know less, but now it has started to know more, then its knowingness has evolved. If it used to vibrate at a lower energy, now it is vibrating at a higher energy, then the soul has evolved in terms of aliveness. The play of aliveness, Chit, energy, has very interesting dynamics. It flows from higher energy levels to lower energy levels. If two souls meet each other and if the energy of one is higher than the other, then the person with the higher energy level will affect the person with less energy. Similarly, if the accumulation of Shakti, Pran, energy, Kundalini in your individual consciousness is higher than the people, things or situations of the outer world, then you continue to influence people rather than being influenced by people.
तो आप लोगों से प्रभावित ना होते हुए लोगों को प्रभावित करते रहते हैं। अगर आपकी
If your level of energy, aliveness is lower as compared to the outer
बाहर की
world,
दुनिया के मुकाबले में, तो
then
आप
you will not
उनको
be able to
प्रभावित कर
influence
नहीं
them,
सकते,
and
उनसे प्रभावित
you will
होते
keep
रहते।
getting influenced by them.
ऐसा ये खेल है, और
Such is the game of
सत,
evolution.
चित और आनंद
To
की
keep
सुंदर
on
सुंदर
maturing, strengthening and
flavors
intensifying the
को
beautiful
और
flavors
परिपक्व
of
करते
Sat
जाना,
knowingness,
और
Chit
दृढ़ करते
aliveness
जाना,
and
और
Anand bliss.
इंटेंसिफाई करते जाना ही एवोल्यूशन का
This is
प्रोसेस
the
है।
process of evolution.
आप
Now if you
गौर से
observe
देखिए,
carefully,
तो पूरे
in the whole
process
process of
में
evolution, the higher evolved soul will
lesser
always
evolved soul
influence
को हमेशा
the lesser
प्रभावित
evolved
करके
soul.
जी रहा है।
You are
Lesser
attracted
evolved
to
souls
souls which are more
higher
evolved than you,
souls से
and not
हमेशा
towards
प्रभावित होकर
souls
रहिए।
who are less evolved than you.
आप अपने से
You may feel a
कम
sense of affection, love, and
उत्क्रांति वाली
responsibility
स्थिति
towards
वाले
a lesser
जीवों की
evolved
तरफ
soul,
attract नहीं
but you will
होते।
not have the desire
आप
to be like them,
आपका मन खींचता
because
है
the
जो
nature
higher
of the
evolved
nature is
soul
to
है उसकी
evolve.
तरफ। आप सुन रहे हो क्या मेरी बात? लेसर इवॉल्व्ड सोल्स के प्रति आपको वात्सल्य का, प्रेम का, जिम्मेदारी का एहसास हो सकता है जरूर, लेकिन उनके जैसा बनने की इच्छा नहीं होगी, क्योंकि द नेचर ऑफ द नेचर इज टू इवॉल्व। प्रकृति का मूलभूत स्वभाव है वो एवोल्यूशन की तरफ जाने का, तो वो बहुत नेचुरल
It is a natural process that a person with more energy, aliveness than you will always give you the feeling that I also want to be like them.
बनना है।
Is everybody listening? Those living at a higher state of evolution than you
पर जीने वाला व्यक्ति
will naturally teach you something or the other
अपने आप ही,
on their own. Due to their mere presence, Sat knowingness will increase.
होने से चित्त
There will be a
बढ़ोतरी
possibility
होने
of
की
increase in
संभावना
Chit aliveness,
उनके होने से
and due to their
आनंद के
presence,
अलग-अलग
you will
flavors
experience different
ज़्यादा
flavors of
उत्कटता से
Anand,
अनुभव
bliss,
करोगे।
with more intensity. This
पूरा का पूरा
interesting
खेल
game of
ऐसा है।
consciousness
आप
can
Art of
also
Living
be
Family
seen in
में
the
भी
Art of
देख
Living
लीजिए।
family.
Art
If an Art of
का
Living teacher is teaching a course,
अगर कोर्स सिखा रहा है तो उससे उत्क्रांति में
then they
lesser
easily
जीवों
are able
को
to affect
वो बहुत
souls
आसानी
who
से
are less
प्रभावित करता
evolved.
है।
But
लेकिन ज्यादा
if
intelligence
someone
वाले,
with a more
परिपक्व
evolved
हुए हुए
consciousness, having
चेतना
more
वाला कोई
intelligence,
व्यक्ति
is sitting in
participant
the
बन के
course as
सामने
a
बैठा हो,
participant,
और वो
even
teacher
though
को
the position
देख
of
रहा
the
है,
teacher is
स्थिति
apparently
उनकी teacher
higher,
की है, हायर स्थिति कह सकते हो, लेकिन
but
उनसे
such a
प्रभावित नहीं हो
person
पाते
might
हो।
not get influenced by the
सब
teacher.
सुन रहे हो क्या?
Is everybody listening to me? The
Consciousness
game
का
of
खेल
consciousness
ऐसा
is such that a
higher
person
स्थिति
in a
वाला
higher
व्यक्ति
state of
lesser
evolution
स्थिति को
will affect the one in a lesser state.
प्रभावित करेगा।
Now is the time to
इसलिए मैं
understand
कई बार
this evolutionary
गुरुदेव को भी
process
गुहार लगाता
in a
था
deeper
कि
manner.
गुरुदेव थोड़ा सा इवैल्यूएट करके टीचर बनाने चाहिए। ऐसे इस खेल को अपने अपने जीवन के परिप्रेक्ष्य से समझा जाए तो देखिएगा जीवन का हर कार्य या तो सत से प्रेरित या चित से प्रेरित या ज़्यादातर कार्य आनंद से प्रेरित ही दिखेंगे। अब समय है अपने इस उत्क्रांति के प्रोसेस को और गहराई से समझ लेने का।
Everyone, listen carefully. We have already talked about the steps of evolution of individual consciousness.
इंडिविजुअल चेतना की परिपक्वता के 2 स्टेप्स हैं।
One is negative to neutral and the other is neutral to positive. The game for negative to neutral is about dropping, being free from harmful tendencies and being free from activities that harm your beautiful consciousness. The individual consciousness has 3 attributes: Sat knowingness, Chit aliveness and Anand bliss. It also has 3 gunas, qualities of Tamas, Rajas and Sattva, and 3 doshas, distortions of Vat, Pitta and Kapha. Some activities further strengthen, beautify and nurture the state of your individual consciousness, which are called harmless or beneficial tendencies, while some activities harm your consciousness and decrease your levels of Sat, Chit and Anand, which are called harmful tendencies.
नुकसानदेह आदतें कह सकते हैं।
Is everybody listening? Today is the time to identify and understand in depth these negative tendencies, which are called the 6 enemies of consciousness. Everyone, let's invoke enthusiasm and love. And let's keep the student cap on. I'm saying, what are the effects of these 6 enemies of consciousness on your individual life?
क्या प्रभाव कर रहे हैं?
If you understand this, then there will be a possibility of awakening a natural, intense resolve
संकल्प जगने की संभावना बनेगी
to get rid of these negativities. Are you listening to me? My dear ones, as long as you have not clearly seen the harm caused by them, then the small pleasures you get from them may seem lucrative to you. Are you listening to me? Anything in the entire existence is a 2-sided coin with both advantages and disadvantages.
दोनों साइड वाला सिक्का है।
So it is possible that these 6 enemies may also have some plus points. But mostly these tendencies cause great harm to the consciousness. And therefore, the step to get rid of them is to be understood as mandatory and inevitable. In any spiritual path, one way or the other, there will be some form of disciplines to get rid of these 6 negative tendencies. Which are these 6 enemies of your consciousness? Lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego, jealousy. Lust means sexual desires, physical pleasures. Anger includes aggressiveness and resentment.
आक्रोश। मैं कहता हूं
the entire range of this tendency of anger is from small complaints to resentment, which gets transformed into anger, which if not dropped can ferment into hatred as well. This whole array of experiences is summed up in a single word: anger. After lust and anger, there is greed. The tendency of greed means to seek satisfaction from the illusion of happiness associated with things and situations in this outer world. And the illusion of associating life's prosperity, joy, security with some person is called attachment or infatuation or delusion. This is moha.
अपने जीवन का अर्थ ढूंढना, इसको लोभ कहते हैं। और व्यक्तियों के होने से सुख मिल जाएगा, सुरक्षितता हो जाएगी, जीवन की समृद्धि बनी रहेगी, ये जो भ्रम है उसी को मोह कहते हैं। मैं उसका वर्णन करूंगा ही। कामवासना, क्रोध, लोभ, मोह,
so lust, anger, greed, attachment, jealousy, and the 11 flavors of ego, which we have discussed in great detail. These tendencies
दुश्मनों के द्वारा, चेतना के, आत्मा के,
have been described as the 6 enemies of consciousness, enemies of the soul.
अच्छा,
our rishis never labeled these actions as wrong or bad. They never blamed the people who indulged in these tendencies.
इन कार्यों में इंडल्ज करने वाले लोगों को दोष कभी भी नहीं दिया।
They always called these as
क्लिष्ट वृत्तियां कहा है,
harmful tendencies, habits that damage your life. My dears, if someone is falling into these tendencies again and again, then there is no need to hold a grudge against them.
नाराजगी रखने की जरूरत नहीं, my dears.
On the contrary, I recommend that compassion towards them should arise within you. Due to their harmful tendencies, their lives are already getting harmed. Why are you burdening them even more by calling them wrong and blaming them?
क्यों डाल रहे हो उनके ऊपर? सुन रहे हो क्या? जी आओ। वो खांस नहीं पाता ना तो लाल 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 हो जाता है बेचारा। सुनिए मेरी बात, ये एडिट कर दे।
We will begin by understanding the disadvantages of lust.
हम शुरुआत करेंगे।
On the one hand, it seems that out of the pleasures of the 5 senses, the highest pleasure is obtained from the activity of lust. Then why was it classified as one of the 6 enemies of consciousness? Why is it called a sin?
कॉन्शियसनेस के दुश्मनों की सूची में क्यों रखा गया? तो
you will see the activity associated with lust can provide a pleasure of maximum 5 to 7 minutes at the most. Whatever you call it, orgasm, intercourse, masturbation, whatever it be. As soon as it reaches a peak, a significant energy drop occurs immediately after that. My dears, the dynamics of this energy drop needs to be understood. It is described in great detail in Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the science of life. Now, when I say the mind here, I am referring to the mind, intellect, memory and ego, all 4 together with this single word mind right now. In Ayurveda, the functioning and intricacies of the body-mind-soul complex is described in great detail. Now let's look into some of these dynamics and then we will explore further formulas.
वो क्या बता रहे हैं?
As per Ayurveda, our entire bodily system is run by 7 dhatus, bodily fluids. They are called Sapta dhatus, 7 bodily fluids. 7 bodily fluids: saliva, blood, flesh, fat, bones, bone marrow, and the reproductive fluids. These are the 7 dhatus, bodily fluids, that run the entire physical body. And even in that, our consciousness, our own energy is being used, right? Just like the rasa dhatu, bodily fluid of saliva, gets created by condensation of the consciousness. And as its intensity, potency increases and it gets more refined, bodily fluid of blood gets formed. Just like that, from bodily fluid, bones and eventually bone marrow gets formed. I do not exactly remember the order of these, but the system is made up of 7 bodily fluids, and out of these 7 bodily fluids, the last and the most potent bodily fluid is Shukra, the reproductive fluid. And the calculation given is that it takes the energy equivalent of producing 1000 drops of blood in order to create 1 drop of Shukra, the reproductive fluid.
एक बूंद शुक्र धातु बनाने के लिए चाहिए.
The reproductive fluid is present as vaginal fluids including ovum in women and as semen including sperms in men.
शुक्राणु.
To make this bodily fluid, so much energy, consciousness, life force, prana will be used.
प्राण का इस्तेमाल होता जाएगा.
Shukra dhatu is said to have the highest potency as it has the power to make a complete body.
क्योंकि उस धातु में एक पूरा शरीर बनाने की ताकत है.
A complete body can be formed by the union of a sperm cell and an ovum.
स्पर्म एंड ओवम के मिलने से एक पूरा शरीर बन सकता है.
And this power, this potential, this potency is not there in any other dhatu.
किसी धातु में नहीं.
And as the highest potency is in this dhatu, to produce it,
बनाने के लिए उतनी ही ज़्यादा
it would need the proportionate amount of energy or prana. Now imagine the cost involved when, for the pleasure of merely 2 to 5 minutes, such a potent dhatu gets ejaculated again and again. Also understand how your system works. If the amount of any one dhatu gets diminished in the body, then the entire bodily system starts working to replenish that dhatu. Suppose you donated 300 ml of blood for blood donation. After that, for a long time, your whole body-mind complex will be working to replenish the 300 ml of blood which was donated.
पूरा का पूरा आपका बॉडी माइंड सोल कॉम्प्लेक्स लग जाएगा काम में.
What will be used in this process? Your own consciousness made up of Sat, Chit and Anand will be used. The higher the potency of the dhatu, the more energy it will consume in order to be produced.
खाएगा माने कंज्यूम करेगा बनने के लिए.
I am saying the energy needed to produce just one droplet of semen is equivalent to the energy consumed in making 1000 droplets of blood.
स्पर्म बनने के लिए, ओवम बनने के लिए चाहिए. और वो अगर बार बार
and if semen is getting diminished again and again,
के सुखों के लिए
it is a great loss for the consciousness for the pleasure of mere 5 to 7 minutes. The whole system remains engaged in the task of replenishment. I will explain it in a scientific manner. If you make a graph of energy and time, then with time, energy rises through sadhana, satsang and seva.
धीरे एनर्जी चढ़े, ऊर्जा चढ़े, साधना सत्संग सेवा करते हुए.
Then for this activity of 4 to 5 minutes, the energy drops and then again rises and then again drops. If you keep diminishing your energy again and again, then you cannot even imagine a life at a higher level of energy.
तो चढ़ी हुई ऊर्जा के साथ जीवन का जो अनुभव हो सकता है, वो आप अगर बार बार आपकी ऊर्जा गिर रही हो, वो हायर लेवल ऑफ एनर्जी वाला जीवन आप इमेजिन ही नहीं कर पाओगे।
दिस इज माई पॉइंट। यू कैन नॉट इवन इमेजिन इट।
और खास इसीलिए,
and that's why for those who are interested in uplifting their consciousness made up of Sat Chit and Anand in any spiritual path, sooner or later the discipline of brahmacharya is introduced.
Sooner or later ब्रह्मचर्य का डिसिप्लिन इंट्रोड्यूस होगा ही। दुनिया में जीने वाले लोगों
It is okay for people living in the world that they regularly indulge in that activity.
जिनको अपनी चेतना
But those who want to blossom their consciousness, live life at a fantastic height and attain the Brahman, the highest,
प्राप्ति के लिए अगर जीवन जीने में
then I recommend that you should be ready to give up this 5 to 7 minute indulgence of lust.
मिनट का भोग त्यागने के लिए तैयार हो जाना चाहिए। और ये
I am not saying that this activity is bad or you would be a sinner if you do it.
ऐसा तुम करोगे तो ये बात ही नहीं है।
I am saying if you want to attain the divine, then you can give up these small pleasures for some time. It can be taken as a sacrifice. I call it intelligence. It is intelligent to give up the craving.
कि रस त्याग दें।
Such is the game of lust. There is another ingredient here.
ingredient है जो सत, चित और आनंद के,
even from the perspective of Sat, Chit and Anand,
perspective से,
which is a little objectionable.
ही है। आप गौर से देखना,
remember those moments when lust was dominating your consciousness. I'm again reminding you that we are not labeling things as wrong or right. That's not the point. Observe your consciousness in those moments of lust.
चेतना के खेल को थोड़ा सा सेंसिटिवली अगर देखा गया,
then you will understand that the person towards whom you felt lust for, in those moments, that person became a means of pleasure for you.
तुम्हें तुम्हारे भोग का साधन नजर आया, my dear।
The divinity, the beauty, the stage of evolution of that person and the spark of the divine within that person.
के अंदर का वो परमात्मा का अंश,
all these were forgotten in those moments
स्मृति से ओझल हो गया
when you saw them as a mere means of pleasure.
का साधन ही दिखा, my dear।
I am not labeling it as wrong, but it is a drop in the level of consciousness.
स्थिति गिरती है सजगता में, वो एक ड्रॉप हो गया, मैं ये कह रहा हूं।
And after understanding all this, our scriptures have allowed that tendency on a temporary basis towards one person when accompanied with intense love.
एक्सट्रीमली टेम्पररीली वो भाव ऑलमोस्ट अलाउ किया गया अपनी चेतना में,
with a lot of sensitivity. I am saying where there is intense love, there 2% lust is allowed with a lot of reverence and sensitivity.
जहाँ उत्कट प्रेम हो वहाँ 2% लस्ट अलाउड। ज्यादातर समय
usually when lust dominates, there is only 2% love. Once again, I remind you that we are not labeling it as wrong or right, or as this person is bad and that person is good. This is a very sensitive, very intelligent and a very courageous choice.
बड़ा courageous choice है जो
which we can make for our life. This is my point.
कामवासना
very deliberately, our rishis did not explain this subject of lust in too much details.
Deliberately, बहुत ज़्यादा वर्णन के दायरे में लाया ही नहीं, बहुत deliberately, क्योंकि संसार भर में इस सुख को
Are you listening? Because lust gives you the highest pleasure out of all five senses. But there are only few people who have the wish to transcend it.
जीव हैं वो इतनी कम मात्रा में हैं कि सिर्फ उनके लिए
And this subject, because it is relevant only for the selected few, this subject cannot be discussed in front of the world, my dears. I really hope you understand my point. Someone who is interested in the sensory pleasure might argue that Rishiji, it is easy for you to say.
आपको बोलने के लिए क्या जाता है? सुन रहे हो क्या?
But what you are saying is impractical. Some people will even use twisted logic and try to justify it by saying, if we do not do this activity, then how will reproduction continue? Almost as if it is only their responsibility to sustain the global population. I am not speaking for them. All I am saying is, sooner or later, you will have to free the mind from craving of sensory pleasures and direct it towards higher pleasures. That state of evolution is inevitably going to come sooner or later. That is what my point is. Anger. Talking about anger, as soon as an unpleasant experience occurs for the mind, there is tightness within. And if the mind does not drop that tightness, then it becomes a complaint. If the complaint is not dropped from the mind there, then it will become anger. If this anger is not dropped, then it can lead to blame and hatred. This whole spectrum of experiences has been described in a single word, anger. And instead of looking at it from a wrong or right perspective, we look at it from a perspective of beneficial and harmful.
What it does to your consciousness.
Anger destroys your softness. It destroys the sweet, beautiful, blissful, love-filled flavors of your consciousness.
मधुर भाव खत्म कर देगा. आग लगा देगा.
It will set the individual consciousness on fire and also burn the collective consciousness.
चेतना को भी जैसे जला देता है.
Such is the game of anger, a prominent tendency belonging to the 6 enemies of consciousness, the Shad-ripus.
बड़ी स्थिति रखने वाला ये दूसरा दुश्मन क्रोध.
First, let us understand these 6 enemies of consciousness, and then we will talk about ways to be free from them. So don't think, oh, if this happens to me, I don't know what to do. No need to worry. Using a beautiful process, you can drop whatever you want to drop from your consciousness and be free from it. We have a process through which this freedom, this choice is available for everyone. The game of greed and attachment is also worth understanding. There is a treasure of joy, love and celebration in your individual consciousness. Your individual consciousness is made of Sat knowingness, Chit aliveness and Anand bliss. And pardon the use of this word. Like fools, we keep searching for it in the outer world. Why? Because these two demons of greed and attachment have got hold of our mind. The illusion of getting pleasure, joy or a sense of security from people is called attachment. And life will be enriched by things and situations. This illusion is called greed.
उसको लोभ कहते हैं और मैं कहता हूँ इसका जो
observe these dynamics on your individual level,
वो देख लीजिएगा,
and you will clearly understand why our rishis put these in the list of 6 enemies of consciousness. Observe carefully till any person, thing or situation is not in your possession. Up to the time you don't possess it, how lucrative it appears to be. See how pleasurable it appears, how much your heart and mind crave for it. And as soon as you possessed it, look what happened. Every single time, inevitably, the soap bubble burst and there was nothing much inside it. Are you listening to what I am saying? If someone is unable to understand this, then I guarantee you that this higher wisdom is not for them right now. Only those who have experienced this deeper truth of life, then they will be able to relate to it and they would say, yes, that's true. You check with your own experience. Till a piece of clothing, jewelry, motorcycle or car are in the showroom, how attractive they appeared to be. As soon as you bought them, observe what happened in your consciousness. Neither your Sat knowingness increased, nor did your Chit aliveness increase, nor did your Anand bliss increase. You gathered people, accumulated things and created situations the way you wanted them to be. But it did not uplift your consciousness. You already had 50 dresses, so much jewelry. Some more got just added to it. I am not saying that you should not gather all this. That's not my point. My point is that if you observe technically, it is only an illusion that you will get something out of it. Your individual life is in your consciousness and its beautification, its evolution is what really gives you satisfaction.
Beautification है ना, वो तुम्हें तृप्त करता है. सुन रहे हो मेरी
Are
बात?
you listening to me?
सत
If your
चढ़ा
sat increases,
तो तुम्हें
then you
बड़ा
feel
मजा
so
आता
good
है अंदर
within.
से. चित्त
If the
का
level
level
of your
चढ़ा
chit
तो
rises, it
extremely
makes you
satisfying
feel
feel
extremely
कराता है
satisfied.
तुम्हें.
And as Anand
जितना
rises,
चढ़ता जाए,
it will exhilarate
तुम्हें
you.
exhilarate कर
It will
देगा,
fulfill
जीवन
your
तृप्त
life.
कर देगा तुम्हारा.
This
ये
experience
अनुभव
is not
व्यक्ति,
possible by
वस्तु,
gathering
परिस्थिति वाली
people,
बाहर की
accumulating
दुनिया को
things
तुम
or
कितना
situations
भी
of the
इकट्ठा
outer
कर
world,
लोगे, वो मिलने की संभावना ही नहीं है.
because
क्योंकि
the
उसका
treasure of
खजाना
this
अंदर
is
पड़ा
within you.
हुआ है और
And like
बेवकूफों की
fools,
तरह
we
हम
are
बाहर
searching
ढूंढ
for
रहे
it
हैं उसको.
outside. See, the Hindi word for
बेवकूफ ये
fool,
कोई गाली नहीं है,
bewakoof,
my dears.
is not a bad word.
वकूफ माने
Wakoof
wisdom.
means wisdom and
सयानापन,
understanding, intelligence,
understanding,
sharpness.
intelligence, sharpness.
And
बेवकूफ
bewakoof
यानी
means
जिसको समझ में
someone
नहीं
who
आई
did
अभी
not
तक बात.
understand the point so far.
अच्छा, आप
If you
गौर से
observe
देखो,
carefully, the whole
पूरी
world
दुनिया
is
ही
doing
ये कर
this.
रही है और तुम्हें और
And
कोई
as you do
तरीका
not
पता
know
ही
any
नहीं
other
है
way of
जीने
living
का,
life, you
इसलिए
are
तुम
also
भी
doing the
शामिल हो
same.
जाते हो उस गाडरिया प्रवाह में. तुम्हें अंदर से
Sometimes
कई
you
बार ये
might be
लगता भी
asking
होगा,
yourself,
अरे
what
मैं
am I
इकट्ठा
doing by
कर करके
accumulating
क्या
all
कर
this?
रहा हूँ?
I am getting
मिल तो कुछ
nothing
भी
in
नहीं रहा.
return. Tell
ये
me,
सचमुच
hasn't this
बताना,
come to
अनुभव
your
में आया है कि
experience?
नहीं?
But
लेकिन
as there is no
कोई
alternative in
alternative
front
नहीं
of
है,
the mind,
कोई प्रति
and hence
आहार
it is
नहीं है मन
seeking
को, तो उसी
some
के
small
द्वारा
little
जो कोई
pleasures
भी
by
छोटा
doing
मोटा
it.
मिल जाए वो ढूंढ रहा है मन. सुन रहे हो क्या?
Are you
सुन
listening
रहे
to
हो क्या मेरी
me?
बात? इसका है ना वर्णन करते
Two
हुए
examples have been given in
दो
our
examples
scriptures
दिए
to
हैं हमारे
describe
शास्त्रों
this.
में. कहते हैं एक
When a
कुत्ता
dog is chewing a
जब
bone,
हड्डी चबा रहा होता है तो उसको
then it
लगता है
feels
हड्डी में से
that
मुझे
I
रस
am
मिल
getting
रहा है.
pleasure out of the bone.
लेकिन
But
सचमुच
if you
अगर
really
देखोगे
observe,
जाकर, तो वो जो शार्प
the sharp edges of the bone are injuring and making the dog's gums and mouth bleed, and that blood is giving taste to the dog. The dog is getting nothing out of the bone in reality,
और इसी भ्रम
and
में
it keeps
वो
on
हड्डियां
chewing
चबाता
bones
रहता है.
because of this illusion. There is
श्वान
one
का
more
ही एक और
example
उदाहरण देख लीजिए.
involving
रात को 2
dogs.
बजे
In
स्कूटर,
India, if you go out in a
मोटरसाइकिल,
car
गाड़ी
at
लेके
2
आप
a.m. in
रास्ते
the
पे
night,
निकलिए.
dogs will
का
have a
एक
specific behavior.
देखेंगे.
They
भौंकते
will
हुए
bark
भागते हैं
and
आपकी
chase
गाड़ी
your
के
car,
पीछे. आप ये करके देखिएगा.
and if you stop the car,
डोंट वरी,
they are
आपको
not
काटने
interested
में
in
उन्हें
harming
बिल्कुल
you.
रस नहीं है. आप काटेबल मटेरियल हो ही नहीं.
As soon as they
जैसे ही
reach your
भागते भागते
car,
आपकी गाड़ी तक पहुंचेंगे, फिर
they
उनको
do
पता
not
नहीं
know
होता अब
what
मैं
to
क्या
do
करूं.
next.
तो फिर दूसरी गाड़ी देख के उसके पीछे भागते हैं.
And then they see another car and start chasing it. Exactly
यही
this behavior is
behavior
exhibited by
पूरी
human
दुनिया
beings
में
across
मनुष्य
the
योनि
world.
के लोग भी कर रहे हैं
Isn't
कि नहीं,
it?
मुझे बताइए.
Perhaps they
शायद
have
उसी
come
योनि
from
में
the
से
same
आए
animal
होंगे.
yoni of dogs and hence are
तो अभी भी
continuing the
वही
same
चल
behavior.
रहा है. मैं ये कह रहा हूं, एक
I am saying there is an extreme
देख लीजिए.
example here. Alexander the Great.
the Great.
Who
जिसको
is
यहाँ
called
सिकंदर कहते थे.
Sikandar in India.
पूरी
The
दुनिया
fool
जीतने निकला था
wanted to
बेवकूफ.
conquer the whole world.
एक
He
के बाद
won
एक के
one
बाद एक
country after the other.
देश जीतता गया.
For him there is a verse in Hindi here, do not forget, Alexander had great ambitions, but when he left the world, his hands were empty. If you observe carefully, if actually one were to get anything out of people, things and situations, then the rich and the wealthy would appear to be so fulfilled and content. But exactly opposite to that, if you observe some people, they seem to be poor in material terms. But their inner world is very wealthy. Beautiful it is. Are you listening to me? So we saw lust, anger, attachment and greed. Seeking pleasure from things is greed, and seeking pleasure from people is attachment.
व्यक्तियों के द्वारा सुख की चाह, सुख का भ्रम, ये मोह हुआ.
And based on your life experiences so far, irrespective of whether you accumulate more or less in the outer world, has your inner world changed? This is my point. The purpose of life is inner blossoming. I hope you understand my point. Spirituality is for souls wanting to explore the spirit, the soul. For those people, you should live for the beautification of the inner world. And from that perspective, if you see these 6 things, you will observe them as 6 enemies. For a worldly person, greed might not be a very big enemy.
लोभ ये कोई बहुत बड़ा दुश्मन ना भी हो.
But for those who are interested in their inner beautification,
में रस है, उनके लिए तो
the formula is crystal clear.
है.
As a Hindi poem goes, the mind is free now as there are no desires. The one who wants nothing is really the king. Observe a little more carefully whether it be greed or attachment. They are born out of lack. There is some lack, some feeling of incompleteness within, and hence there is a seeking that I might be complete, be fulfilled by gathering something outside.
ये खोज है. सुन रहे हो?
There is a very interesting Hindi couplet describing it. It says, my own being is scattered in my own home, and I am searching for it in the parties. My own being is scattered in my own home, and I am searching for it in the parties. I am saying if there is a feeling of incompleteness within, then you will need to complete it by going within. How much ever you accumulate in the outer world, it will not complete you. It is actually like searching for a black cat in a dark room which is not there. How will you find it?
एक अंधेरे कमरे में काली बिल्ली ढूंढ रहे हो जो वहां है ही नहीं, मिलेगी कैसे?
As I was saying before, this wisdom should be a part of our education system.
मैं यही कह
This
रहा
is
था,
what I was saying. No one
तुम्हें
taught
किसी
you
ने
to go
सिखाया
within
ही
and
नहीं
receive
कि
abundantly.
अंदर डूबो और भरपूर पाओ. तो दुनिया
And hence,
देखिए
the whole world
उसी
is trying to
बाहर
accumulate
के
things in the
परिग्रह
outer
के
world
द्वारा अपने जीवन
and
को
trying to
सार्थक बनाने
fulfill
में
their
लगी हुई है पूरी
lives
दुनिया
like fools.
बेवकूफों की. एक बार फिर याद दिला
Again,
दूं,
I am reminding
बेवकूफ ये
you.
कोई गाली नहीं है
Bewakoof,
मेरे लिए.
meaning fool in Hindi, is not a bad word.
सुन रहे हो?
Are you listening?
काम,
Lust,
क्रोध,
anger,
लोभ,
greed,
मोह,
attachment, and now ego.
मद, मद माने ईगो. उसके
Ego
11
has
फ्लेवर्स. एक
11
बार सूची
flavors.
याद रख लीजिएगा.
Remember the list once
Superiority
again.
complex,
Superiority complex, inferiority complex, guilt consciousness, victim consciousness, defensive consciousness, aloof consciousness, attacking consciousness, complaining consciousness, judgmentalness, and doership.
and doership. और इन सब का बाप
And the foremost amongst these, but which plays its game subtly from the background, is selfishness or self-orientedness. When selfishness dominates, it makes you completely unaware about the well-being of people and your own self and about the science of consciousness.
पूरी तरह बेभान कर देता है तुम्हें.
Are you listening to me?
सुन रहे हो क्या?
Are you listening to me? Such is the ego with its 11 flavors. And then the sixth, your sixth enemy is jealousy, envy.
ईर्ष्या, envy.
Listen carefully now.
सुन रहे हो?
In this moment by moment flow of life,
ध्यान से सुनिएगा सब.
many such occasions come up
किसी के
where due to someone's success, the feeling of lack,
तुम्हारी चेतना में ये
of
तुम्हारी
not
उतनी
being
सफलता
successful
नहीं है,
enough, arises in your consciousness.
वैसा अभाव जगता है.
If someone's good quality is getting expressed and people are praising it,
और बहुत सारे लोग उसकी तारीफ कर रहे होते हैं, और
then the feeling of not having that quality within you rises, which can be called your lack. A feeling of lack gets triggered in you. And in those moments, the conversation is not why did they get it. The feeling is, I lack this, which is called jealousy or envy.
मत्सर कहते हैं. तुम्हारी चेतना
There is such a huge treasure of beautiful flavors in your consciousness, and you are unable to appreciate those treasures due to someone getting something or having some good quality or getting some praise or expressing their plus points.
प्लस पॉइंट का एक्सप्रेशन हो रहा हो,
and you feel you do not have it or you are not getting it. Please listen to this carefully. This envy, this jealousy can be expressed in different ways.
तरह से मैनिफेस्ट हो सकती है, एक्सप्रेस हो सकती है. आपके बारे में आसपास के लोग, सुन रहे हो मेरी बात, किसी के प्रति तुम्हारी चेतना में वो ईर्ष्या जगी.
If you are jealous of a person, then if someone says something negative about them,
नकारात्मक बोला तो तुम्हें
then you feel very satisfied.
किसी ने
You find pleasure in someone criticizing them.
सुख मिला. उनके
If they face problems in life, or if someone scolds them, you feel a demonic pleasure.
मैं तो कहता हूँ आसुरी खुशी मिली. आप सुन रहे हो क्या? अच्छा, तुम अपनी
You will use your sliminess, cunningness and your intellect and try to incite dislike for them in others.
उनके प्रति औरों के मन में द्वेष भाव जगाने का तुम प्रयत्न करते हो.
Jealousy can make you play such devilish games.
मत्सर का भाव तुम्हें. आप सुन रहे हो?
Are you listening to me? It will pollute your consciousness from within.
गंदा कर देगा अंदर से, दूषित कर देगा.
It will make you dirty. It will damage your purity.
तुमसे अधर्म,
It will make you play such dirty and sinful,
क्या-क्या लुच्चाई वाले
adharmic games
खेलों को देख के तुम्हें
which will make you feel disgusted.
डिसलाइक होता है, वैसे खेल तुमसे खिलवाएगा ये. सुन रहे हो मेरी बात? तुम औरों को वैसा ही खेल खेलते हुए देख के सुन रहे हो?
If someone plays such dirty games, you will feel disgusted. But when jealousy is triggered in your consciousness, it will make you play such dirty games.
मत्सर जग के वैसे ही उत्कट गंदे खेल तुमसे खिलवाए,
and your mind and intellect remain unaware while your sense of discrimination is lost, and you will abandon truth and dharma
सत्य छोड़ दो
and keep justifying these dirty games and find them to be okay. This is how jealousy is. I am saying with a lot of integrity, with honesty, and courageously.
और हिम्मत से, honestly and courageously.
Observe these 6 enemies of your consciousness. They are 16 in total.
अच्छा, मैं कहता हूँ टोटल मिला के 16 हुए. काम,
lust, anger, attachment, greed, 11 flavors of ego, and jealousy.
टोटल मिला के तुम्हारी चेतना
For these 16 flavors polluting your consciousness, give yourself marks based on how regularly these manifest in your consciousness.
रेगुलरली मैनिफेस्ट होता हुआ देख रहे हो. अपने आप को तुम कितने मार्क दोगे उसके अंदर? मार्क दोगे यानी ये पॉजिटिव.
And this is not a positive marking.
जैसे
like being COVID positive is a problem. So if you find yourself positive in these,
पाए जा रहे हो,
then you need to get an RT-PCR test done on yourself.
सुन रहे हो क्या मेरी बात? एक बार
check how these 6 enemies have affected your life.
कितना स्थान मिल गया है. और ये मैं ये नहीं
I'm not saying you have to let them affect you on purpose. It would have happened out of unawareness or ignorance. In the past, such events would have happened and these tendencies would have polluted your mind. You did not do it on purpose. What I'm saying is, Out of ignorance, these 6 enemies have accumulated in your mind, which damage the Sat-Chit Anand of your beautiful consciousness. Give yourself marks on how much they dominate your consciousness. I am saying, mark yourself between 0 to minus 10. I am not saying 0 to 10 plus. How much minus have you gone? If it is minus 1, then it is not much of a problem. Doesn't matter. Once in a while it comes and goes away. But if it is minus 4, minus 5, minus 7, if it has reached there, then I guarantee you, you will have to be courageous, acknowledge them in your consciousness, and find ways to be free from them. We are pausing here in today's session so that everyone can open-heartedly explore how much these dominate their consciousness and commit to be free from them.
ये खुले दिल से देख लें और निश्चय बना लें इनमें से मुक्ति का.
And then we will discuss the process to be free from them in the next session.
हम इसके बाद के सेशन में चर्चा करेंगे.